Okay. We should be rolling. We are rolling. Okay. We are rolling. Okay. All right. Today's stream. No, actually, I need to not talk about stream. I just need to. We are trying. Not trying. During my stream, I'm going to be recording a video, so we'll be understanding what. Who's making sound? Just kick. Turn off. I'm going to be documenting my process that'll eventually end up in a YouTube video. So that's what today is about. So this video is all about how I use Claude Code. I've been spending a couple hours every day for the past month or so dedicated to AI only coding, meaning if I know the fix, if I see the fix, I can't do it. I'm forcing myself to learn how to use the tools to have AI drive all of the work, to have AI do all of the coding. Has it been easy? Has been bumpy, and it has been a learning experience without a doubt. Not only as I learn how to get more effective at prompt engineering, context engineering, whatever label you want to throw on it, but also as the tools have changed over the past month, and I've had to learn and adjust to leverage new capabilities that they offer. So this gives you exactly how I'm doing things as of right now, end of July 2025. I'm sure if I were to record a video end of August, which I may do in 2025, my approach will be different. But this is everything I've learned. This is how I do coding. I just wrapped up a couple of features yesterday and have everything written down of how I want to attack this. So we will start from So we'll start from the top. How do I get started? What is the base installation of Claude Code? What agents do I use? What MCPs do I use? We'll cover those first. All right, first things first, MCP servers. So here in Claude Code, you can see the three MCPs. Here in Claude Code, you can see the three MCP servers that I use. What you'll notice is that the Context 7 MCP server has failed to connect. This has been a steady problem for me over the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I've just given up. So what you'll see in there is you will see ref. Ref is the MCP server that I'm using to replace Context 7. It's not as free as MCP. You do have to log in. You do have to attach your API key, and there are paid versions. But it seems to be more effective, and most importantly, it's more reliable. So I've been happy with that so far. Lastly, Playwright is there as an MCP server. I've not pushed this one very hard, but this is, again, at a stage where I'm learning. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but that's a thing that I'm in process of figuring out the best way to use it. I've used Playwright a lot in my manual coding. It's been very, very effective. So I'm going to see how I can leverage it here. Okay, so we'll get out of MCP. Let's look at agents. So these are the three agents that I use. These are pretty common roles as I think about how you would build a development shop. Number one, you have a product owner. So this product owner, I can pop open all of the documentation. So this is the definition of my product owner role. I use this agent when I want to create a work item. I give it a loose definition of what I'm looking to do. It builds out effectively a user story that I go back and forth. We refine it. I create a GitHub issue with that, and that now is saved for later use. Up next is our architect. So our architect role works in a very similar manner. I say, hey, it's time to work on GitHub issue number 100. Go research that issue, build out an architectural plan of how we should achieve that, that aligns with our Claude Code rules, which I'll cover here in a minute. And it covers that. So that then what I have it do is once it has everything in a good spot to where I think the plan is good, we have this agent add that as a comment to the GitHub issue so that third, the full stack dev agent that we have defined here now goes, reads that same GitHub issue with all of the business requirements that are defined by the product owner role, and the technical approach is defined by the architect. And this now goes and puts that plan into action to make sure that we can make this happen. So that's my three-headed approach with sub-agents as it is right now. I'm sure it will change. All right, so I referenced Claude Markdown files. We'll take a look at those. The main Claude Markdown file. So I ended up having to break down my initial Claude.md file into multiple files because as I continued to add rules and patterns and practice, as I started to add rules and patterns and practices into that document, it eventually got too large and Claude started complaining and saying, hey, wait a minute, your Claude.md file is too big. Can you break it out? Hey man, it's Freddie. Thanks for coming in, Freddie. I am talking through my whole process. So as we look at the Claude Markdown file, you'll see that there are a handful of sub Markdown files that I use to document the patterns and practices for all of the work that we do. So we have an architecture file, API auth explaining how that is working, development commands, Git workflow, testing standards, how we manage the front end, and our overall tech stack. So those are the Markdown files that I busted out of the main Claude Markdown file to help things happen. Yes, Freddie, I am using sub agents. I'm going to get into that in a minute here. So yeah, I actually just talked about the three that I have in place, but I'm going to go through and run an example. Because ultimately I'm trying to get to a YouTube video. We'll see how well that goes. And if I actually want to put the effort in to do all the editing to make all that happen. That's not a strong suit of mine. I don't know how I'll handle having the patience to make that happen. Okay, so let's talk about the four, actually, 1, 2, 3. We have 3 MCP servers, 3 agents, and a bunch of Markdown files that we are using. So for you, Freddie, the 3 agents that we have an architect, sub-agent, full stack dev sub-agent, and a product owner sub-agent that all get called in to do the various pieces of work. So as of a couple of streams I started doing is whenever I start a new feature or a new item in GitHub, I always clear the memory and start fresh, because as I replayed the historical sessions that I had with Claude Code, the more I worked with it without clearing that memory and starting fresh, the more frustrating it got. So the longer I used it, the more almost confused Claude got. So I've taken to the plan of working in small compartmental things as much as possible, self-contained. We're working on this thing and we're not doing anything else. Once we're done with it, we'll put it off to the side and we'll start over with the new one. Okay, so to do that, we just /clear, and that clears the memory. All the context is gone, so we're starting 100% fresh. So let me grab an issue for us to work on. What is gonna be good for us to try and tackle? We've done a lot of the list item. don't want to tackle that one. Social logins would be good, but that'll take some. We'll just continue with filtering. Let's see. Distance range. Okay. So this is a story. Let me center everybody on where we're at. Get us all on the same page. So we are adding filtering to our list view. This is something that we really were only able to filter based on the map view. And so we don't want to start with the map view because that's a large lift for loading all the tiles and all of that stuff. So we start in list view. If you want to flip to the map view, you can hit the map button. But one of the things we needed to do was to be able to filter. So we added this filtering to be able to filter by amenities and now by minimum rating and be able to manage all of that. That all applies nice and smoothly. Everything works as it should. So that's good. So this is just an extension of that of we want to add a filter where we can filter based on max range from where you are. So now this filter, goes up to 17 miles or something like that. So let's say I want to search for something in the next or within a radius of a mile or something like that. Yeah, this allows us to specify the slider. It'll get a little bit tricky when we want to worry about the map. Real-time filtering as a slider move. So I'm going to ask the product owner role. So we turn on plan mode. We are working on 129. So I would like the product owner sub agent to review GitHub issue number. What did I say that was? 129. 129. And make sure it completely captures the value we need to offer to our customers. Make sure we evaluate how the filter will get used in both the list and map views. It also make sure we have some acceptance criteria that maintains the filtering patterns we already have in place. So that if we go back and we look at, we'll let that do its thing. If we go back and look at the product owner agent, talking about how this is set up to be customer value first, empathetic translation, scope precision, being able to work with stakeholders. So this is something that I actually asked Claude Code to help me with, because when sub agents came out, I didn't know what a good sub agent definition was going to be. So I said, hey, Claude Code, these are the type of sub agents that I'd like to make happen. Can you help me make the definitions for them? And of course it said, sure, I can do that. So I asked it to build out the sub agents. So these are the ones that we ended up with. It's been working pretty well. I've been actually pretty happy with how it's working. So let's go see how that sub agent is doing. All right, so it's reading the issue. And each sub agent does get assigned a color so that you can see which one is working. I haven't gotten to the spot where I had multiple of them running in parallel. I'm just not there yet. I've thought about different ways I can make that happen, but I haven't landed in a good spot where I felt comfortable, confident in making that happen. So this is where it's at. Okay. So we're going to expand GitHub issue 129 with this. Okay. This one's going to be a little bit messy just because we got to deal with the map and the radius and all that jazz, but okay. So we'll have that role, that subagent, go ahead and update the GitHub issue. And what you can do is you can set up your prompts as you're talking to Claude Code to say, subagent, do this. Once I approve this step, then ask subagent X to take over. Once we approve that or do that, then the next subagent can make that happen. So what you'll see is we'll get to a point where we have the issue defined well. I'm working through the prompt with the architect, and then once we approve that, the full stack dev subagent will take over and make that happen. Yes, go ahead and edit the issue. Let me look at this real quick. I want to ask a question here. I think so. I would like to evaluate if we expect this radius to affect the zoom on the map view, or would we just maintain the existing, I can't type, is existing zoom on the map and filter locations based on this new filter, which is optimal for our users. I have an idea of how I think I want it to work. So my mental image is that when you open the filter and you change the radius, we should also adjust the zoom on that map. So I think that's the right answer, but I want to ask it and see what it thinks. And if it comes back with something that I haven't thought of, okay, cool. Then we'll take advantage of that. But I have a feeling it's going to come back and say, hey, we should adjust the zoom as well. So we'll see what happens here. This is the part where I think it's going to make it a little bit more complex than some of the other use cases I've added of late. So it'll make tracking this a little bit harder, but it'll be okay. We can handle it. We've done harder things. Okay. That works with me. Okay. Let's update the issue accordingly. Yeah, I think that's the right way to go. Is just, again, you are working with an engineer. That engineer is not necessarily human, or in this instance, you're working with a product owner. It's not necessarily the traditional human that you would be working with, but I have found that the best approach is, how would I tackle this situation if I were in a room with some of my peers? I would ask the question. I would say, hey, I think this is the right answer, but I'm not sure. What do you think? And we would have a good, healthy dialogue, and we'd land on the right answer. Like this one, it actually came back with an answer different than what I thought, but it had very good reasons of why that was a better option. So, okay, cool. That makes sense, which that's exactly something that we would do in the real world. Okay. All right, so we should be done with our issue. As you can see, our issue has been massively updated. When we first started, it was acceptance criteria of like 3 different things. So we've really handled this effectively. Okay. All right, so now we've done that. Okay, good job. All right. So now it's time for us to get into the execution of this. So we're going to have the architect first review the issue, build a plan that aligns with Claude Code. I'll give it a reference to ref, the MCP server, to make sure we're following any best practices as defined by our tools. Build out a plan. Once we agree and approve that plan, then the full stack dev subagent will take over and execute all that. So here we go. We need to start working on issue number 129. I would like the architect subagent to review the issue completely and build a technical plan for how we can achieve the requested functionality in a way that is simple, maintainable, and aligns with all patterns and practices defined in Claude.md. Okay, so that restates, we need you to architect a solution for the requested functionality, make sure it's scalable, maintainable, and fits in with all the patterns and practices that we've defined in our Claude.md files and all the subfiles that are linked to that. Okay, I'll give it a little bit of extra is make sure you use the ref MCP server to validate best practices with each of our tools in our tech stack. Once we agree on and approve the plan, the full stack dev subagent should then take over and put the plan into action. We must make sure the full stack dev subagent also has clear understanding of the requirements from the issue. Okay, so we'll give this a think harder and we'll let it go into plan mode. And this should do its thing. So by doing this, we've queued up the work where our architect subagent will go through as is defined. We have defined that agent as this is your specialty. This is what you do. We're going to have you focus on this one thing. So this further aligns with all of the work that I've been trying to do, where I've been trying to minimize the scope with which I'm asking Claude to execute on. So using these subagents helps give it clarity of only worry about this part. I'm just asking you to solve this problem. We have another agent that's going to be good at solving this next problem. So our architect sub-agent is going to be good at making sure that the solution that we plan out aligns with the standards that we have, is scalable, responsive, performant, all of that. So it manages that. Once we have that, then it passes everything off to the full stack dev sub-agent, and it's off and running to make that happen. Again, it doesn't have to do the worrying about is this scalable or performant, because that's already been answered. So minimizing that scope over and over again has been very beneficial and proven to be a much better way to work with Claude Code. So we'll let it do its thing. The one thing that I don't like about Claude sub-agents is that you see less of the thinking. It's not visualized as much as it used to be. It was always nice to see what was happening, but now within the sub-agent, it is compacted quite a bit, and you don't see the thought process of what's happening, which makes sense because in theory, you have these sub-agents off running, doing their own thing, and you don't need to see it, which that's the right answer, but just from a comfort perspective, I'm not there yet. The ref MCP server is the replacement for context 7 MCP server. I continually was fighting a battle with the context 7 MCP server getting disconnected and not working when I asked it to be used, and ref seems to be much more stable and reliable, and as they explain, uses less tokens, so therefore costs less, meaning you chew up less of your quota, whatever it is, based on however much you're paying for Claude Code or whatever tool you're using. All right, let's take a look at what we have going on here. One of the biggest challenges that I've had with Claude in managing some of the work that I do is it ends up not building the most performant solution. It gets the job done, but there have been many times where I'm working on trying to filter something and it wants to bring back all of this data and then filter it a couple layers up, when in reality, the most performant, most efficient way to do that is to have that filtering happen within the database. So there have been a bunch of times, which is why I have to really read through this plan, is make sure that the filtering that we're doing is all built into the database. So that I've yet to get to a spot where architecture is completely perfect every time. All right, so we're gonna stick with the sliders just like that. That's good. This all looks good. Interesting. Map radius overlay. Okay. We'll see how that works. All right, so this all looks good. Actually, I want to ask questions. Given everything I just talked about, can you please detail out how we will be doing the filtering in the database? Please keep this plan, but add some additional clarity to this key performance aspect. So that last part where I told it to keep this plan is something that I haven't been doing in the past. I've asked it questions and it reduces the scope of what it's thinking about. So I found it beneficial to make sure, hey, keep this plan. I like this plan, but we want to add this one thing. So I've had to get much more explicit about keep the plan, but add a thing. There have been many times when I've asked it a question and it further reduced the scope because it didn't know because I wasn't explicit about keeping that existing plan. So that's a trick that I've had to figure out through trial and error is be hyper explicit with Claude. If you want to keep the plan, keep the plan. If you want to slightly extend the plan, slightly extend the plan. Oh, we don't do, hold on. We only do filtering in the DB as defined in Claude.md. I want to keep this plan, but add the additional details of how we will filter in the DB. Make sure the plans align with Claude.md. Okay. That's one of those things I could have left to the full stack dev sub agent, but I want to make sure we have that totally clear and upfront before we get that party started, because we really should get it to a spot where we can just like let it run. So this should be pretty quick. It should be able to just go make this update and we're off and running. We're already doing the within based on the zoom level, I think. Let me take a look real quick. Yeah, so we're already searching within. Interesting. Yeah, this is a bit more beefy of an issue than I wanted to work with, but that's okay. Okay. Put a lot in here. That's okay. That's okay. Better more than too much. Database layer changes. We already have. Hmm. Location by bounds. Okay. Okay. All right, this all seems pretty reasonable. Okay. No database migrations, correct. Okay. We'll let this go. So now what should happen? Plan is approved. Architect subagent should now pass things off to the full stack dev subagent, and it should be off and running, making all of this happen. All right, so we should be good to go. It doesn't look like the full stack dev subagent took over. That was working yesterday. It's not working today. Yeah, so the way we define the work, and it might be because I further refine, it might be because I further refined the plan that sometimes, as we talked about, Claude tends to lose the context as you continue to shove more onto the stack. Sometimes it loses the context that you started it with. So it didn't maintain that we wanted to hand it off to the full stack dev subagent. So it's still doing the work, just doing it with its general agent, not the full stack dev subagent, which is a little bit better, a little bit more effective. But most importantly, we have a clear plan that was defined and ready to go. So now we let Claude do its thing, work through this. Regardless of how this works, regardless of all the work that we've done to get here, nothing changes the fact that once Claude says it's good, I still validate whether it's good or not. There have been a handful of instances where, even though within the markdown files that I have defined of our quality gates, these are all the things you have to do, there's some times where it decides it's okay if one or two tests aren't passing. Just like, hey, we did a thing, we did it. Or there's been times where it doesn't add the necessary tests that it should, so we add a whole bunch of functionality and off we go. Yeah, we are a TypeScript only app here. So if you like TypeScript, you're in the right place. And where'd my camera go? That's really annoying. Wonder how long my camera hasn't been working. That's no good. Makes it hard to create content when there's no camera. Dang it. Yeah, it's okay. JavaScript and TypeScript, it's the same thing. You're fine. Okay, so to review, we started with a very short GitHub issue that defined what we were trying to solve. We worked with the product owner subagent to go through and further refine what we needed this feature to do. That built out a much larger issue that we then fed to the architect subagent that we have defined in Claude Code that built out an entire plan. And that is what is happening right now. So it's off executing against that plan to make that happen. So we are adding the piece of functionality that's going to allow the user to search within a radius. We can show, let me stop our dev server because it's going to have some trouble. Yeah, so I'm building this on Next.js with Postgres on the back end using Drizzle as my ORM to manage all of that business. Pretty simple, trying to keep it as vanilla as possible. So yeah, that's where we're at. Really had to put in a lot of effort over the past couple of days because we, for the first time, were launching our filtering. We didn't really have any filtering. We had a map where you could zoom in and it would adjust based on that, but you couldn't filter by amenities or rating or anything like that. And that was causing, it to be less useful. So had to put a lot of work in over the weekend to define the filtering pattern because I knew that we were going to have this whole set of filters that we were going to have to add. In fact, there's a whole milestone that I created in GitHub that has a handful of issues. So we can actually go look at that filtering. So we had 10 different filtering items that we wanted to add. So I created a milestone within GitHub, and then we have all of those built out. So we got the basic pattern in place yesterday, got that added, got that done. So we are good there. So let's check on. I don't want you to run dev because then that gets everything. I will run the app and test locally. You validate all of our quality gates as defined in Claude.md. It did not add tests, so that's a thing that we're going to have to do to validate this. And this is one of those things where I've gone back and forth where if I found it didn't do something, I've had this mental wrestling match with myself with what do I do? And that will hurt your brain staring at that. Goodness gracious, Claude, get your shit together. Do I go back through the subagents and do I have the architect subagent architect a plan for how we want to do the tests, or do I just rely on the full stack dev subagent to make that happen? I haven't defined a standard yet with how I tackle that. I've mostly been just letting it roll because, again, we have so many of our patterns and practices defined in our markdown files that I feel like it's good enough. I don't have to go back to the well to figure all that out. So we'll see. Why is... What was that? Oh, that was in the tests. Okay. Okay, so it's claiming everything's are good. Everything's are good. It's claiming everything is good. I still, let me make this text a little bit bigger in case you guys want to see that. I still run everything. So I npm run format to make sure prettier does its thing. npm run lint to make sure we don't allow any warnings, we don't allow any errors, we don't do anything. npm run type check just to make sure we have no weird type issues going on. And then npm run test, run develop this test. So those should all be good. Okay, and we did add tests. Okay. We did. Okay. So now let's run the thing and we'll take a peek at it. Let me get this reasonably sized on the screen for everybody. Okay, so now we should hit our filter. Filter has minimum rating and maximum distance. So now if we only want to look at places that are within 10 miles, although that doesn't line up. That doesn't line up. That says within 10 miles, but we have it set on 5 miles. So we got to fix that. Yeah, it's off. It's kind of weird. Okay. Anyways, within 5 miles. So apply filters. Boom. As you see, we have nothing here more than 5 miles away. Let's change that filter. Change it up to 10. We now have more places. This one, 8.7 miles away. So that is all good. So it appears to be working. We have some oddities. I will actually take a screenshot of this. Let it see. We can tell it. You may not know this, but you can take a screenshot and paste it into Claude Code. So get out of plan mode. We have a bit of a bug with the max distance slider. Look at the screenshot to see that we have the slider on 5 miles, but the output says we are at 10 miles. Research this and build a plan to fix. We paste in the image and go. What am I building? I am building what I have called Road Trip Ninja. So Road Trip Ninja, this is something that I came up with about 10 years ago when my kids were much younger and we were driving across various states and they needed to go to the bathroom or they were hungry or something and we wanted to stop. And sometimes when you're driving on the highway, you just stop and you don't know what's coming up. Maybe the stop you stop at the gas station is just a disaster and it's horribly dirty and you don't want your kids to go in there. Or maybe you get lucky and it is. So this is a way for parents to see, hey, in the coming exits that are up in front of me, what are some nice places for me to stop? Maybe I should drive another mile, go another exit to stop at that gas station that's got a really nice clean bathroom and it's got a playground outside that my kids can run around and be crazy. Right? That's what we're trying to do. So all right, so what does Claude have for us? Label shown. That'll do it. Fix the labels. Okay. I'm fine with that. You'd totally pay for it. That is exactly what I'm hoping for. So we're going to start off free. Just there may be ads or something like that. I'm not sure how I want to monetize it. I do have ideas for paid features, so like pro versions where you can get additional context about things, but I don't want to make parents pay to get help. You know, the basic functionality should be there. So, yeah. All right, so we're going to run this update. Boom. Let's refresh. We'll see how this is looking. Okay, that all looks good. The question is, how's it look on a phone? Is that going to be too small? So let's take a peek. Get in the phone. Okay, so that's reasonable. We're iPhone Pro Max. Let's not. iPhone Pro. Okay. We're going to challenge this a little bit here. I am worried about that many labels on a slide. Oops. On a slider on smaller phones. Please update the plan to be inclusive of smaller screens, but make sure it still behaves as expected. Yeah, that's the whole concept of having locations pay to be featured is something that I think is out there. I've done work in other marketplace type apps where, you know, you're searching for something and providers can pay to be featured or to have a larger photo or more photos or whatever. You know, we're not going to lie to our customers or anything like that, but it will let people pay for higher. Okay. So we're going to responsively adjust our labels. Okay. I like that plan. That's a good plan. Good job, Claude. You didn't brute force it the way I would have done it. I would have just brute forced it and reduced the number of steps on that. But we're detecting, hey, this is mobile, so let's show fewer steps in the slider. Good job. We do need to look at the map, though. It's got this overlay it's putting on it, so I want to see how that works. Okay, so it's going to say we're done. Okay, so now let's take a peek at it. See how it looks. Okay, so it already adjusted. Filter, distance. Okay, that doesn't work. we are back to the issue on small screens where the slider does not align, agree with the value in the description and chip. Please research and build a plan that works for both small and large screens. Flip to plan mode. What do we think is the right answer here? Do we just have any and... All right, so what are we saying here? Fundamental issues, labels are positioned using CSS. Yes. Actual slider doesn't align with that. Yes. Responsive slider configuration. I like the single simplified. We're going to say no. Let's go with the simplest approach. If users complain and need more slider stops, we can worry about that later. Our priority is functionality first. Okay, we'll do that. Okay. Good. I like it. I like it. Yeah. Get the problem solved, then we'll be on our way. Yes, this is Claude Code, and I've been experimenting with sub agents, which is something that they've had that's a bit newer for them. So I have 3 agents defined. I've got a product owner agent that helps me write the stories that are a part of GitHub and the issues. Then I have an architect sub agent that goes and builds up the plan of how we are going to deliver on the deliver on the request as defined by the issue. And then once we have that, then we have a full stack dev sub agent go and make that. And you're saying, well, why are you doing all that? It's Claude. Claude's meant to do all that stuff. What I found is that when I can reduce the scope as much as possible and say you're only worried about this piece of the problem, Claude is more effective and more efficient. So by reducing the scope and saying, hey, we're just trying to define a great issue in GitHub about this is the need that we have, this is what's going on, then we should be good. You want the mic to be louder? Let me see what I can do about that. Is that better? Does everybody like that better? Okay. So we'll just give it a restart here just to be sure. I can work with that. That'll work. Okay, so now let's go back to larger screen. Okay, so now we flip to the map. Okay, cool. Ooh, look at that. That's a problem. Yeah. We'll have to adjust that Z. So we go back to list. That's a problem. We should be showing 10 miles, 4 stars. So we should be seeing 1, 2, 3 items. We go to the map. We're not seeing any. We're seeing them now. Interesting. Oh, it was clustering them. That was the issue. Oh boy. Okay. We got some technical challenges with this one. So the bug we have going on here is the filtering is arguing with the clustering. So we have all these clusters where maybe I just turn off clustering for now. Right. So once we zoom out far enough to where there are enough items within here to be clustered. And we hit a logical debate. Back to the list. Okay. We are going to abandon ship on this feature because we need to handle sorry, I got to make some notes for myself. Cluster. All right, so we got to rethink how we're going to do this whole feature because this could be a mess. So we're going to discard all changes. Yes. And we will come back to that issue at a future date once I think that through a little bit more. So what are these other filtering things that we can do? Has photos. Interesting problems, my friends. Interesting problems. Okay. I got to rethink some of this. So I am going to stop the stream and go figure out how I want to tackle this. Because we are at a point where we're going to have to really rework and rethink some of the foundational bits of the app. But that's okay. Stuff like this happens. So thank you to everybody for hanging out, all the questions. Thank you for the feedback on, hey, your mic's too quiet. Appreciate that. And I will see you all. I'll probably be streaming tomorrow. If not tomorrow, Thursday. Because I got to make some progress on this. So, appreciate you all. Take care of yourself.